Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We're here in Laboni, Accra, Ghana. You're here with Marsaw Media. Myself, Troy Marsaw, aka Cowboy Troy. Today we have a special guest that has a background in banking. We're here with Kennedy Aboka-Sasu, who has a 16-year background in the banking industry. And what I wanted to do today with you, Mr. Kennedy, is I wanted to enlighten people that are coming in from the US of A or that are watching from the US of A that have an interest in Ghana, how the financial systems work here in Ghana. And I know that you having a background of 16 years in banking, I'm sure you have a lot of information that you can share with us. You know, one of the things that when I first arrived in Ghana, I fell in love with Ghana, and so I decided that I wanted to build a home in Ghana. And I did not know what the process was, so I went to the bank thinking that I could get a 30-year loan to build a home in Ghana, and all I had to do was show my good credit. And they walked me out the bank real quickly and said, that doesn't work over here. So would you explain to myself, as well as all of my friends and the world that's watching, how does it work?
Hello, everyone. Yes, so my name is Kennedy, as Marsaw mentioned. So Ghana is a lovely place to be. For those of you from the diaspora who are interested in coming to Ghana, it's a peaceful place to be. A lot of people coming here. We call it the gateway to Africa. So it is quite peaceful. The indigenes are very welcoming to foreigners, especially those African Americans who want to come in. Just as your experience abroad in terms of banking, we also have quite a structured banking system here. The only difference is that you need to have certain forms of eligibility before you can patronize our services. And so usually, if you have a working visa and you come in, you are able to open accounts with the local banks, for which you can access all the bouquet of banking services that we do offer. In the case of a visitor's visa that you secure, when you come in, there are limitations in terms of the banking services that you could enjoy. So you could literally use your Visa cards on our various ATMs, that is if you have a MasterCard or Visa card, to withdraw monies or to pay for services in the hotels, in the restaurants, or at Airbnb facilities that you do log into. So generally, yes, there are services to be enjoyed as an African American or as a diasporian who is visiting Ghana for the first time or want to do business, but it's mainly contingent on the form of visa that you are given, be it a visitor's visa or a working visa. Yeah.
So earlier I asked you a question, and the question was, though, is it difficult to get money through the banks for real estate if you wanted to, say, purchase a home or build a home here in Ghana?
Yes, so I would say the mortgage industry in Ghana is fairly young compared to overseas or the Western world, where this process have been there, or these services have been there for well over 50, 80 years. Mortgage businesses started here. Most of the commercial banks started onboarding mortgages fairly about 20 years now. And so it is a bit young, and the conditions in terms of the eligibility is a bit robust. Mainly because of the working class that we have here and the affordability of it. Unlike in the West, where you can have a mortgage for like 30 years, most banks tenors averages about 15 years that you could access from our market. You need to be in the middle class in terms of earning equivalent of about $4,000 a month to be eligible for a commercial mortgage in Ghana.
4,000 a month.
$4,000 a month.
Is that 4,000 gross or net?
Nets.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be earning a net of about $4,000 before you'll be eligible for a mortgage in Ghana. Reason being that in terms of pricing, it is relatively expensive. So average mortgage pricing is about 41%.
41% of what?
41%.
What's 41%?
41% per annum in terms of API, annual percentage interest rates. So the total interest you're paying on month.
41%?
41. So it is tiered to the we call it the Ghana reference rate. So the central bank has a base rate that all the banks should reference in terms of their pricing of loan facilities to their customers, and it is reviewed on a monthly basis. Currently, the average is 29%. Then the banks do add their margins to it. So margins of about 10, 12%, that takes it to 41%. So they have two options. They could do the pricing in dollars or in cedis for you. If you are earning your salary in dollars, then they can do a dollar facility for you. In which case, we're looking at interest of about 13 to 14% per annum.
Let me get this straight. So what you're saying is that if I had a credit card, or is this for the any type of loan?
Okay, so I mentioned that if you have a working visa to Ghana, you are eligible. It means that you're working in Ghana. You are eligible to open an account and operate an account in Ghana. So if you want a mortgage facility, the mortgage is tied to the tenor of your visa that you are staying in the country. So if you have a long-term visa to be working in Ghana, it means that you're eligible to apply for a long-term facility, in this case a mortgage.
And how long can that be?
Okay, so it could be as long as 15 years.
15.
Max. 15
Okay,
years.
15.
Yes. Now, in terms of the pricing, you're asking about the. I mentioned that the affordability makes it quite limited to a few people, and you need to earn a certain income bracket before you're eligible because of number one, the interest rate, and also the average pricing of properties around.
What's the average interest rate?
The average interest rate is 42%.
42%?
Yes.
Over
Because
15 years?
over 15 years.
So you paying 42% annually
Okay.
over 15 years?
So the interest rate is not locked in. I mentioned that there are two components of the interest rate. We have what we call the Ghana reference rate. This is a rate given by the central bank. It's adopted by all the commercial banks. So what it means is that every month there's a review on that percentage. And then there's a margin from the commercial banks which they add on. The current average Ghana reference rate is 29.2%. Then you add your margin to it. So the average margin that the banks do add is between 10 and 12%. So that averages 41, 42%. Now, if month on month there are review in the interest, the Ghana reference rate, and it goes down, it means that your monthly payment is also likely to come down because of the marginal reduction in the reference rate component.
So that's the plus minus side of it.
Yes.
So then the question becomes, then, if let's take an example of $100,000 place, $100,000 home. So you're going to pay 40, just say 40 to 42% annually on that $100,000.
Right. Okay. So there are factors that goes into it. If you want to know the average spread for $100,000 for 15 years, it means that you are paying an average of about $12,000 a year. $12,000. I mean, on a yearly basis, in terms of the principal payment. I'll just give you a fair idea.
So on top of the principal.
Yes. No. So in terms of if you're repaying a loan, you pay an interest component and then the principal component. All right. So you spread the principal over the tenor of the facility as well as the interest over the period. Usually with mortgages, you pay a higher portion of the interest within the first 5 years to 10 years of the facility, and then the greater chunk of the principal at the latter part of it. So when you sum up, by the time you finish payment, in terms of interest payment, that's about 300% of the mortgage that you took.
That's pretty rough.
Yes, and it is so because of number one, the interest rate that is applying on it, and also in terms of the exchange rate between us. So if you are earning in foreign currency and you take the mortgage in foreign currency, the pricing is different. You're getting the base of about 10% with a margin of 2 to 3. So that averages about 13% per annum. That is relatively cheaper compared to the CD denominated facility.
So the majority of the ones that are able to do this are they pretty, say, high income earners?
Yes. So that's why I mentioned that you need to be in the high income bracket before you be eligible. Currently, mortgages are prevalent in the market, but it is not affordable to the lower income and some portions of the middle income brackets. Yeah.
So it's the upper middle class.
Exactly. Even for the local banks, they also have some form of concessions that they do give to their staff in terms of mortgages. But even there, where the rates are heavily subsidized, they are averaging about 5% per annum in terms of as an incentive for their workers. Even that, still some brackets of their staff are not eligible because of the cost.
So then, what is the average loan amount you think for the upper middle class if they were purchasing a home with a mortgage?
Okay, so there isn't anything like the average loan amount. It is literally based on your affordability, as you, the loan applicant. So your affordability and the cost of the property you're looking at is what determines the what do you call it, the basic or average pricing or repayment amount that you will be servicing.
And that needs to be paid off in 15 years.
Yes, but if you could pay off earlier, all the better.
No prepayment penalty?
No, there are no penalties for early payments.
Do you have, for a business owner that decides, hey, you know what, I'm coming to Ghana, I want to start up a business, and I have a small amount of capital, but I would love to get a line of credit. Do you guys offer line of credit to
Yes.
new startups?
Okay, so a startup, in my definition, as a business that is newly registered, they don't have any experience in terms of operations, and that is what I define as a startup. So for such businesses, no, we don't open such lines to them. However, if you have been in operation for a minimum of a year, for which there are records of your financial performance, you are eligible to apply for such facilities. Yeah.
And so then it would be basically based upon your financials
Yes.
as to what you'd be able to borrow.
Yeah, so it's based on financials and your projections, your cash flow projections. Yeah.
And so you don't have a system here where you have to be concerned about credit, like your credit report.
We have a partial system. We call it the Credit Reference Bureau. So for every borrower, every prospective borrower, we do our due diligence by referencing you to the bureau. We get a report to show whether you have any borrowing history or not. So, for such reports, we review it to determine whether you had some hardcore or non-performing loans under your name, for which we also have to factor into our decision making.
So you have a system to pull that up and see it?
Okay, so that is limited to the Ghanaian market. That is what we have, yeah.
So it's limited to the Ghanaian market.
Right.
And so then you have some form of credit reporting.
Yes, we do.
You do.
Yeah.
For Ghana, but
Yes.
not for anyone coming in from the U.S. because you would know. You want to base what they're doing over here, not what they're doing over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if the source of repayment is based on your workings in Ghana, we limit ourselves to the Ghanaian market. You would have access to your...
Could a
standard
person
credit.
get a loan based upon their credit report in the U.S.?
Okay, so that is just one aspect of the indicators, or should I say the approving requirements. So having a credit report, a good credit report, is one aspect of it. We also want to be sure that we have some form of control in terms of the source of repayment. So in the event that you are working abroad or your earnings are from abroad, we do not have any control in terms of instructing your paymaster to direct all payments due you through your account with Fidelity or Commercial Bank or Cal Bank or Stanchart. I don't know if you're getting me. So based on that, it will be difficult for the banks to be able to extend facilities to you in that regard. But where you're working locally, we should be able to cover that because we have a general memorandum of understanding with the paymaster to guarantee that all payments due you in lieu of your facility will be channeled through the bank.
What about purchasing a vehicle? Can you go through the bank to get a vehicle?
It depends. So if you want an auto loan for a vehicle, the banks usually require you make a certain percentage of equity contribution towards the purchase of the vehicle. It varies from banks to banks, but the average is around 20 to 30% of the value of the vehicle. They have some requirements that the vehicle has to be brand new or should be fairly used, not more than 5 years from date of manufacture.
If it's a brand new vehicle, is it still going to be in that 40 to 42% range, or is that only for mortgages?
No, it's going to be in the same 42.
Even for the vehicles?
Yes.
40 to 42%.
Right.
So back in the States, we call that loan sharking. You just taking all the money.
Yeah, so to dilute the market, the banks are also cognizant of the high interest burden on customers. So they've introduced some impact related facilities for those in some selected industries like agriculture, education, health. We do have facilities tailored for them, but that limits in terms of the pricing of such facilities. It averages about 10 to 15% that we do give to them as well. Yeah. So there are some selected industries, but the pricing is that, should I say, attractive because of impact investors who are also interested in such areas, and they are partnering the bank to fund those sectors.
That's wow. That's really eye-opening. So it makes it very difficult even for the locals here, unless they have some really big money coming in.
Yeah. So like I said, it's mainly based on your cash flow. So for any bank, they want to satisfy themselves that your cash flow is generating enough revenue over the period to support the repayment of the facility. It's more like looking at your capacity to pay. So you must be generating that much to afford that much that you're requesting for.
So that means that if you're coming in from the U.S. to Ghana and you decide that you want to start a business, it's probably not likely that you're going to get a loan because you don't have anything established yet. Is that right?
Yes. It is very rare to see people coming in from abroad and readily looking for a facility from the bank. Many a time the narrative will be they have some amount of capital they bring in, or they are forming partnerships with a local institution or a local partner to do business, with which over time they may come in for a facility.
You don't have the system of lines of credit unless you have been established for quite some time. So I'm sure you want to look at the financials for a line of credit, right?
Definitely.
So that makes it real hard for just a local. It makes it hard for them to try and start a business and become entrepreneurs because it's hard to access money.
Yeah, because they don't have any history to back that, yeah.
So it makes the economy very hard to grow when you have creative minds that can do creative things and bring in more income to the country, bring in more income into the banks, pay out more taxes so the government can use those taxes to build better roads and streets and all of that. But you're limited because you guys you don't have a system where someone have a great idea but they can't access any money.
Okay, so I look at it from this angle. Most of the banks, cognizant of these challenges that you were mentioning, have developed or they have segmented the market. So we have the small and medium scale enterprises who we know are not well structured or they don't have history to back their operations for support. There are such structures for them. We have a segment of the banking support that we do give to them. So for such institutions, we do not require your credit history, your audited financials or financial records. We literally engage you, and based on the figures you give us, we put together or we transpose that to give us a fair idea about your business size. We also have the established businesses for which we're insistent on them having audited financials and all that to support their business. Now, you also mentioned those who have ideas that want to start up businesses. We're also creating incubators. So the banks are creating incubators or just hub systems where they bring such people together, they offer them training, they bring in resource persons to help them to put their business into proper structure to make them eligible to access facilities from the banks. Usually such clients, we allow them to pitch for whatever they are doing. They are coached as to how they can modify their proposal to make it attractive for the bank to come in to support them. That is where I mentioned the impact funding. So such funds are aligned towards such clients' businesses. That's what we do.
So, do you have a large number of venture capitalists?
For the banks, we don't identify directly as venture capitalist
You
funds.
wouldn't know, but what
No.
I'm saying, do you find there to be a large number of venture capitalists here that even though they have been around for some time, they could take money and start a company where they're providing money to individuals to start businesses, but they can use your money and do that, and you get your money back. It's your 40 to 42%, I guess, but it would make it so hard because for them to make money, they would have to charge 50 to 55, 60%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there aren't many of such. I don't know of established institutions for that. Usually get private individuals who do it within certain circles because they have some form of oversight or knowledge of the active players in those particular businesses that they do offer such services to.
Now,
But we
who
don't
gets
have.
those? The individuals or the banks set that up?
I'm sorry.
When you say that, what you just said, so if they're trying to access money and you saying they go to individuals that have,
Yeah, so they are individuals who have set themselves up as venture capitalists
yes,
that they do fund such businesses. But like I was mentioning that they limit there's a limitation in terms of their reach because of the risk. I mean the
yeah,
apparent risk. They also limit to those that they have some form of knowledge about their operations as well as maybe an oversight into what they are doing. You have to be in there more like an equity partner, so they got to be involved in the business, some form of control in terms of access to the funds and utilization. Yeah.
when you were talking about commercial banking here in Ghana, would you say what percentage are probably Americans that are actually banking here in commercial banking? What percentage would you give? If you had to give over the last 16 years, when you give an average percentage, what would that be?
Okay, so this will be a guesswork because yes, I have worked across some of the banks in the industry, but not all of them. So I wouldn't have a fair idea about their full portfolio. What I would say prior to that though is most of the American-owned businesses or foreign-owned businesses that are banking here are usually in the larger corporate, or should I say in the large portfolio businesses. So that makes it quite significant in terms of the percentage wise. But if you're looking at maybe Americans doing small and medium scale businesses in Ghana, in terms of percentage wise across the banking portfolio, that should be about 10%. Yeah,
10%.
yeah.
10%. So it seems to me it becomes really difficult to start up. You need to have history.
Yeah, so the trend over the past 4 years, we've seen quite a few African Americans or diasporans coming in with the interest of setting up businesses. They started a lot of promises, but along the way, they seem to slow down the operations, which I do not attribute to necessarily the banking service or access to credit, but it has to do with the kind of people that they tend to partner with to do business in Ghana. Maybe either they are not loyal or they divert funds, they disappoint them, so they have to realign the objectives again or redefine what they are here to do. So many a time the challenges that they face, I do not attribute it to banking. It has to do more with the personnel or the people. The people factor is what is probably hampering their business growth.
So on a commercial account, then, if you have a Ghanaian partner, both of you guys will have to be on that account.
That is dependent on you, yeah. Ideally, it is good to be, but in some cases, they trust their local partners to be the sole signatories to the account. Yeah.
And so both parties may have a signature on that account, but if the American is in America and the Ghanaian is here, he has the money basically because he has access to the account. Because
Not
you're not going to
necessarily.
find, you don't normally have the same banks over here that we have in the U.S., do you? Are there any that you know of that may be like a Bank of America? Do they have Bank of Americas in?
No, so we don't have Bank of America here, but most of the local banks here have a relationship. We call them corresponding banks. So we have correspondence with Citibank, Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, Ghana International Bank. name them. So with the question that you asked, if you are an American having a business partnership with a Ghanaian and you're both signatories, the fact that you are not based in Ghana does not mean that your money is in the open. So you define what the mandate on the account is going to be. Is it the case that either of you can sign on the account, or you must both sign before a transaction can go through? If you can both sign, we are also open to digital banking. Now we have internet banking that we avail to our customers, whichever part of the globe that you are located. You could still access your account. So if you are a signatory to the account, a transaction could be initiated. You are far away in Ohio or North Carolina, you can still authorize the transaction from there or decline. And so that is subject to you agreeing with your partner as to what the funds are meant for. So the fact that you're not here physically does not mean that your business is loosed out there. Yeah.
You would probably say that you think it's a fair system because this is the only system you've known. Have you lived elsewhere other than Ghana?
Well, I've lived briefly in Norway. Should I say I lived? No, I visited. So I spent quite time there. But I think that in terms of the banking structure, it is quite a good one that we have. We keep on improving. The improvement here has to do with availing more digital channels so our customers could bank remotely without, any stress, and also stable connectivity in terms of the various banking apps that we do have. Basically, that's it. But I think apart from that, it is the fair system we have. The other side has to do with the regulators in the form of the government also promoting a cashless system. Though we have the banks, the banking system, you want to make a purchase, you want to pay your clients, and you inform them, I'm transferring this money, can you send the goods? They would insist that you send the money to them before the goods are delivered. But if we were to be promoting a cashless system, give me your card number, you just swipe it, and then that's it, it's done. They know you're going to pay. So that would promote customers also believing in internet banking. And there's an element of cyber fraud or cyber security attack, which is currently coming up a lot. So the banks are also investing so much in protecting their customers for them to have confidence in the digital platforms. That is what we are doing. And so generally say yes, there's hope and there's future. There's hope for the banking sector. And
well, speaking of that, I was told that the number one crime in Ghana is more of your white collar type crime, where you would say credit cards were their ways. And for me, I'm not too familiar with a lot of credit card fraud. But what type of credit card fraud do you have here, where people are taking large sums of money? And you being in banking, having a banking background, what do they normally do? What type of,
Okay, so it comes in different folds. We have the first responsibility to our customers, as we tell them with the Visa cards or electronic cards, is that you have to keep it safe. So we get a lot of customers who lose, or just say, their cards get stolen, and these cards are used at the pubs, restaurants, and clubs to transact. So I don't know how the customers or the thieves get to have their PIN codes to the card. Maybe they keep it closer to the cards. So that avails it to them to access monies on their account. In such instances, the banks have little control. But in the event that your card is stolen, once you report to the bank, we can block the card for you.
Cut it off.
We can block the card. In terms of fraud on cards, basically it emanates from the customer failing to keep the cards well. Because other than that, it's very difficult for any, should I say, thief to access funds on your account. Yeah.
So in what case, or are there any cases where I can get my money back if someone gets a hold to my information? Will the banks give me my money back if it was not me? Or do they say, no, you just lost?
No, so if the bank was responsible for that, we take responsibility by getting the money back for you. Usually what happens is that if your card is lost, the soonest that you realize your card is missing, you have to contact your relationship manager so that they can immediately block your card for you to limit the risk of losing funds on your card.
What if I don't check online often, but I have a credit card, and I wake up one morning and I haven't used that card in maybe a month or so, and it has a limit of 50,000 US dollars. And I go to buy something, it says, no, it's used up. You're at the max. But I didn't use it. Do I get my money back?
No, so the control measures we put in place, that we have SMS alerts that is tied to your card. Anytime the card is used, you're supposed to get an automated SMS indicating how much has been withdrawn from the card and your balance on the account. So once you get this information, you should be able to monitor to see if indeed the transactions happening on the card are not coming from you or they are coming from you.
So should that happen when you get your statements? Like for example, do you get monthly statements here from the banks?
Yes, you get monthly statements. If you're signed on to internet banking, you can go on any day, anytime to spool your statement as well. Yeah.
But it's your responsibility though to keep up with it, because if not, you're not going to refund me if someone steals $10,000 from me.
Right.
I don't get a refund. I don't get it back.
No, you don't get a refund for that.
So you have to be really careful.
There are instances where, so you talked about fraud on accounts. It could be from within the bank, or an officer was negligent in paying. So there are instances where, some customers do send you requests via email. Debit my account and transfer my money to ABC account. Now the relationship manager has the responsibility to do a due diligence to satisfy himself or herself that indeed this instruction came from the right customer. And again, the customer has met the bank's requirements of having an email indemnity in place. The email from which you receive the instruction is consistent with what you have in your system. Once you do all these checks and they are on point, you go ahead to make the payment. In the event you honor this instruction without verifying, and it turns out to be that you sent it to a different account altogether, the liability is on the bank to pay you. Yeah.
What happens if they come in from the black web and they figured out how to access money out of an account, and let's say they don't go through the credit card, they go straight through the banking system.
Yeah.
And they know how to go in and on the back side of it, the back end.
Yeah.
And they take money out of there. Then that's still my money.
Yeah, that's still your money. So it means that the risk is not on the bank to pay you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you will pay that back.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're just saying that if you're not careful with that credit card and you lose it or something happens, it may be real difficult to get that money back.
Yes. But we also encourage that as soon as you notice that your card there's an issue, prompt the bank so that we can hold transactions on it for you.
Mm-hmm. Tell me what you think is, in your opinion, what is the best business that you've seen being in banking? What are some of the better businesses that people have done really well in? What industry?
Well, I think there are many success stories to talk about across the industry. You could talk about transport, you could talk about fast-moving commodities, you could also talk about manufacturing, you could talk about real estate. I think that across the industry, there are success stories to talk about for all of them, but basically it has to do with you, the businessman or the client, having a clear objective as to what you want to do, and also, putting in a workable solution. Yeah. Each of them, even though they have success stories, can also tell you about the mountains that they had to go over just to get to where they are. But it has to do with the approach that you use as a client or as a business. Yeah.
What do you think in your opinion, what are the 3 top businesses or industries for making money in Ghana?
So like I said, okay, you may look at it from different angles. We're saying that the highest sector which contributes to our gross domestic product, our GDP, is agriculture. And when you say agriculture, it is quite vast. Some are into import of agricultural produce for the local market. Some are also into export in the form of aggregators. They are making quite a lot of money in terms of foreign exchange. So that's also contributing to the GDP significantly. So in the agri value chain, it cuts across. Are you into primary production, secondary production, or you are in the export market? So that is an area that is quite easy, but that's where there's also high risk in terms of the produce being staple, or need to have structured storage facilities so that these foods do not get rotten or I mean, they stay, their shelf life is extended as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very important. I have noticed that one of the things about the economy here in Ghana, I tell folks, if you're coming into Ghana, in my opinion, you cannot expect to come here and make the same type of income that you made back in the States, especially if you're planning on living here and living in the way in which you lived in the States. And so, because you just don't have the job opportunities or even the monies from the banks, because in the U.S. you may say, okay, I'm moving from California to Texas, and I can just, use my history from California and buy a home in Texas. But it doesn't happen that way here. You come here, you're going to have the money. For rent, you have to pay most times. If you're going to move into a nice place that may average anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a month, then you're going to have to pay all 12 months, unless you're doing a two-year lease. You got to pay all 24 months up front.
Right.
And so, in my opinion, you come here and you decide I want to live in Ghana. Yes, you can find a lot of inexpensive things, but the cost of living, what makes it so much more expensive is that you have to upfront that money. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And so you think about it, if a person had, say, $2,000 and just rent alone, I'm not even talking about purchasing. I mean, 12 months, that's $24,000.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So now you got to try and live off of whatever you have saved, because you're not going to make instantly. You're not going to come here unless you come up with some fantastic idea. You're not going to make that kind of money normally. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, it's partly right and partly wrong. Why am I saying this? So you see, if you're coming in, what I notice again is that oftentimes when we see that the African Americans or the diasporans are coming, they want to set up businesses. We want to get a high street version of locations for them to set up their businesses. We think business is all about location, location, location. But I see the location factor is also subject to the kind of business that you're doing. For instance, if you're into fast-moving consumables, you don't need a prime in terms of the high-end communities to set up in. You need a place, the huge warehouse where there's heavy traffic, where your goods can move quickly for you. So it is all about the kind of business you're doing. Again, also doing extensive research in terms of the rentals that you're going to pay. Some are charging $50 per square meter, others are charging $25 per square meter, and it's so shocking that even the $25 per square meter space is much bigger and strategic in terms of location than the 50 meters per square meter. So it has to do with the intensity of inquiry or research you do in terms of where you want to locate the business. In terms of residence, again, these are all factors that comes in. Many a time what happens is that because it's your first time coming in, the first person you fall on or the first option that comes your way, you're compelled to take it because you want to settle in quick and start what you want to do. Over time, when you start engaging, then you get to realize that there are other options that is way cheaper, 50% lower than how much you even paid. So I think it all has to do with patience. Once you are resolute in your mind that you want to come into the country, you want to come to do business here, you take time to do your research or follow the right people to do the set to get to the right place that fits your budgets.
Yeah.
One mistake too that we're making is that, I heard you mention that like moving to California to Texas, I mean, they have your history. There's the same thing here. Now, when you mention Ghana, Ghana has 16 regions. So if somebody's living in a Ashanti region, doing business in the Ashanti region, and the person is relocating their business to Accra, which is in the greater Accra region, they are still eligible to go to the banks for a facility because there's history.
Yeah.
It just happens that because you're moving from a different country completely, your banks do not have presence here, we are not able to assess your history. That is where the barrier is, But again, Ghana is huge. There are other regional capitals that you could start business, and the cost of setup will be way, way, way cheaper compared to Accra. So you can talk of Kumasi, you can talk of Sunyani, you can talk of Tamale, you can talk of, the Volta region, Ho, or Koforidua, Takoradi, Cape Coast, you name it. You know, so yes, it is a bit expensive, but just last week I watched a video of an African American who was testifying that he came to Ghana and in a matter of 11 months, in a matter of 11 months, he made $4 million from real estate.
Dollars?
Yes, $4 million from real estate in just a matter of 11 months. The advantage that you have as an African American coming to the market is that you have exposure. Ghana is a developing economy. The local businesses do not have the reach or the exposure that you have out there. So with your advantage of having that exposure, if you come into the market, you know how to produce whatever area you're going into at a relatively lower cost per unit, and you can sell quality for a higher margin. You know, so
Are you selling that here or back in the States?
you're selling them here. Now, the interesting part is, let's take real estate for instance. There are lots of African Americans who are coming to Ghana. They want to buy properties. They want to start development, or they are there. They are planning to move to Ghana. They fall on local contractors to build structures for them. And if you look at the plan, the 3D design of the structure you want to build, and you come down to see the structure that is actually on the ground, you might collapse. You know, the margin of difference is so huge.
Right.
You get it? Yeah. So why not somebody who has lived there? You come to Ghana, you set up a construction company. Guys, guess what? Okay, when you say we're building a 3-bedroom and every room measures an average of, let's say, 15 square meters or 20 square meters. So when you mention to the client out there, they have an idea of what exactly they should expect when they come down. And that's exactly what they come to see. They can trust you that, okay, Marsaw is here. He's doing this for us. We have no fears. He knows what our expectations are in terms of service, the finishing, and everything, the details that goes into the structure. So once you put up, they'll be confident in giving you the money to do it, because this is one of a kind. Who is here? An African American who set up a business to do real estate, and he's doing so well. He's secured the land. There are no litigation issues on it. You are likely to go. Look, Ghana is the second highest country earning foreign direct investment in the whole of Africa. So just imagine, there's a lot of money coming into the country, but people are getting disappointed, and so they're reconsidering going back. If you should start such a business, why should you make losses?
Well, you know, that goes into due diligence.
Right.
And if you are back in America, then you're not going to have the time to possibly do due diligence. You know, you brought up the fact of land litigation. If you don't go through the proper steps, there's a possibility you could pay for land 2 and 3 times because you think that you own the land, but because there was a problem with the deed or whatever the case may be, then you don't really own the land. And so that's part of what we do here as well when it comes to consulting. We go out and make sure that those individuals that are looking to invest in Ghana, making sure that their monies are safe. Because me coming from America, the last thing I would want to see is someone to come over here thinking, hey, you know what? This is my retirement, or I'm coming over here to make tons of money. But they don't understand. They just run it. You cannot do business here the way you do it in America. And so that's the reason why my consulting services are so important, because we teach and make sure that you understand. You know, they don't know anything about the Lands Commission. They don't understand that.
Right.
They just say, oh, I want to go out here and do some agricultural work, and I'm going to buy 20 acres. And they go out there and they think, oh, okay, there are 20 acres right there. I can pay for the 20 acres. You don't have a title company that you can go through to make sure that the land is clear. They don't have that here.
Right.
So you have to have someone with their feet on the ground that can assist you in all of that. Even when it comes to investing. You know that you have to have either a certain, I think it's what, $250,000 minimum in cash, or a Ghanaian partner.
Yeah.
And then they have to and then they have to hold a percentage of the company.
Right.
And so even with that, who is going to be your partner?
Right.
You don't know. You don't know anyone.
Right.
So you're going to come over here and partner with someone that you don't know, you've never met, and even if you know them, you're there, they're here. That's a great deal of money that's sitting in that account, and they have access to it. Now there's certain locks you can put on the money where you can't, two signatures and all that, but still, who wants to be that, stressed? It's so, I think that you brought up a very, very good point, and that's why it's also good to know what bank you're dealing with. You need to have a relationship.
Right.
That's important. And that's why I wanted you to come up today because, one, I would say consultant. Two, a trustworthy bank, reliable, where you can develop a relationship so that if you can pick up the phone and call Kennedy and say, hey, Kennedy, listen, here's my situation here. I need help on this. And so all of that's important, and we'll make sure that, Kennedy, that you are able to get those type of individuals that want someone that they can, that they can trust.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I may add to that, so earlier when you asked me about the three key sectors of the economy which are quite profitable, I gave you a caveat that it has to, there are success stories across all those sectors, but it mainly has to do with the due diligence that you go into, and that's what you just confirmed. I would also say that for the banks, I think that they've got the structures in place to protect customers' interest. However, it has to do with the relationship manager also getting to understand what you, the client, are doing as a business. So because there are instances where my clients could walk up with me with potential partners that they're doing business with. So, okay, Kennedy, so this is somebody I found in Ghana. We're trying to form partnership to do ABC, and so let's sign here. Sometimes when the business doesn't sound straight to me, I could call you by the side, and give you an advice. No, I'm not comfortable with this. It looks like you're literally signing away your entire investment to these guys. So one way the concern for the African American community will be probably, how do you know who to invest in or who to partner, as you just mentioned? But I think we're also open to partnerships. So there are businesses out there. If you are a business in the States that you are looking at coming to Ghana, you could also look at businesses that align with what you are seeking to do. They should pitch with their portfolio in terms of performance, what they are looking to do and everything. So more like an angel investor. So you don't necessarily need to start up fresh. They would already have the structures in place. You come in and you put you help them to put the structures in. Like I said, because it's a growing economy, you should expect that they will not be fully structured as you are used to from where you're coming. So if you're coming and you put these conditions or controls, that okay, yes, your business is doing well, it has potential. So why do I want to start all over again? Whereas I could literally come in, but that is where your bankers could also come in to advise you based on the history of the business that is here. If they are not performing well or they are diverting funds here and there, we could also give you some pointers to look out for before you commit yourself into such investments.
Well, I think that you have enlightened the people today, locally as well as, from the other side of the world. And thank you for that. I know that our president here, Crystal Franklin, spoke highly of you, and so that's real good. So speaking of that, before we close out now, I got to ask you this question.
Right.
So Crystal Franklin knows you, and I'm missing $20. So do I talk to you or her about that missing money?
Wow. Should I answer that?
But listen, here's the thing, Kennedy. It's a great pleasure to talk to you because even for me, listening to you today, there's some things I learned today that I didn't know before today that I thought I knew, and I didn't think it was that important. But you made me realize a couple of things that I need to look into even myself. Right. And that's a great thing about getting knowledge from someone that's been in the industry for 16 years, as well as living here for such a long period of time.
Right.
And I don't want to see anyone come from the States here because this is such a wonderful place to live.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to get have a bad situation to occur because it will leave a bad feeling of bad taste in their mouths, and they don't need that. They need to come here and be at peace with their money and their investments. And so part of the reason that we consult them is because we want to make sure that happens. Because when I came here, I had to just trust and hope that everything worked out. But then guess what? Even through that trust, I still had to learn the system,
Right.
because I knew that I wanted to do bigger things,
Right.
but I had to learn it. And so education is not free.
That's right.
So you're going to pay for it one way or the other, whether it's in the classroom or on the streets of hard knocks. You're going to pay for that education.
Right.
And so the best thing is someone that's already educated in that area, you should consult those individuals. And that's the most important thing. And that's just with life in general. You know what I mean?
Right. So I think for me, in particular, I think that I was touched when I got to know what your company stands for. It just served as more like a bridge between Ghana and the diaspora market for African Americans who are looking to come to Ghana to do business. Because I mentioned to you that I've dealt with quite a few of them who've got their fingers bent. You know, partners promise them so much, they bring in so much, but they realize that what is actually happening on the ground is different from what they agreed.
Yeah.
So noticing that you will bite the bullet, or just take the risk of coming down to experience the market for yourself and also help them to establish. I thought it was a good platform to come on to share one or two with them. So thanks for having me, and kudos for what you're doing in Ghana.
Yes.
And I believe that you're also enjoying the environment.
Yes, I am. And I think this is a wonderful and beautiful place. The people are just absolutely wonderful. I haven't had a bad incident since I've been here. I mean, I know things can happen and it will happen, but thus far, I haven't had any bad situations. I thank God for that. But keep meeting good people like you, I should be okay.
Yeah. Let me put you on the spot. So I spoke to Crystal.
Yes.
I asked her which of the local foods that she was used to. And in fact, she couldn't mention anyone. She said our foods are too spicy. So have you tasted any of the local foods? Which one do you like most?
So the rice.
Okay.
Rita has me eating rice every day. So it's a jolly.
Rice is more like a continental food.
It is.
A proper local
So
Ghanaian
you when you go into the what do you call it? What is it? Banku?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know them by names. I just eat.
Okay. So you've tasted banku too?
Yes.
And okra?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
Now
good.
now listen. If you had asked Crystal, what is the alcohol of choice in Ghana, she probably could name all of them, you know?
Okay.
And so Crystal's a breed different than myself. But as far as food, though, now let me say, most times when it comes to food, because there's so many restaurants throughout Ghana, we find ourselves eating at different places on a daily.
Right.
And we still hadn't even touched all of the fine food eateries around here.
Right.
You guys just offer so much when it comes to food.
Yeah.
And as far as the local food, I don't know all of the names of them yet. I just go to the different restaurants where the locals are and I just eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Have you been to the United States?
No, not yet.
You never been yet?
Never been there yet.
So you don't know any foods?
No.
Well, what about the eateries that are here that are American? Have you had any food here that's from?
I don't know which foods you consider as American. Is it the burgers or?
Well, you know,
ones?
like say for example, fried chicken.
Yes. Yeah, I've tasted.
Have you
fried
had
chicken.
anyone from the U.S. that owns a restaurant here that prepares fried chicken?
So I'm not the typical eat out kind of person. So the few eateries I go to usually are burgers and the hotels. Well, Marriott is in, but even when I go to
the Marriott.
Marriott Hotel, but it's mainly continental
Yes,
meals that I'm going in for. So I wouldn't say I know much about the American foods. Yeah.
Well, here's what we're gonna do.
I ate tacos in Norway. But tacos is Mexican, right?
Yes,
Taco, yeah.
but it's still, it's American-made dish.
Okay,
So wait a minute, you hadn't had tacos in Ghana yet?
No, I hadn't had.
Okay,
taco
well,
in
guess
Ghana.
what? Crystal, let me tell you something.
Okay.
When it comes to
I hope
American
Crystal's
food,
listening to
yeah,
this one.
she's listening.
Okay, right.
She's somewhere here listening.
Okay.
I'm going to make sure that you have a good American meal prepared by Crystal. Now, let me tell you something. This girl can burn, man. She can cook.
Wow.
Yes, sir, she can cook.
Wow.
And so we have to make sure we get you over to the house.
Okay.
Whenever I'm in town,
Right.
Crystal, she moves out, and I'm there, and she promises me that when I come to town, she's going to come to the house and cook for me every day. That hasn't happened on this trip. And so I don't know what's going on here, but Crystal has found some new friends in Ghana.
Okay.
And so when we first got here, I was eating some good American food made by Crystal.
Right.
But now Crystal doesn't have time for a boss man anymore, and so I have to fend for myself.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So hopefully you can talk to Crystal at some point in time and say, you can't do your boss man like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Tell her we both want a good American cooked meal.
That would be great.
That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would be great.
It looks like myself and Crystal have a lot to talk about.
You have a lot to talk
We
about.
even have to plan a trip outside Accra to maybe Kumasi or Cape Coast. But she doesn't like traveling out of Accra.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So-
Invite me
Okay.
in the next 6 to 12 months, okay?
Right,
Gotcha.
right.
All right.
Okay.
Our friend, thank you very much for joining us in, I almost said the Crystal Chit Chat, but no, thank you for joining us, Marsaw Media,
Right.
for a very enlightening conversation that I think is going to help many people, and that's the most important thing, is to help people to navigate through this whole process of coming into Ghana and making it work for themselves.
Right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.